This eye's still a little bit blurry. The other part of this eye is blurry. But the main thing that's bothering me at the minute is double vision.
When he's looking up and in, the left eye is going up and in extremely well. The right eye is kind of stopping. You see how the right eye is just not as high up as the left, and that's a restriction. So the eye wants to go and he wants to track it, but the more I do this, the more he's going to start aching in that upper inner aspect. And what he's going to do is, if he's in a fight situation, he's not going to be dealing with it. He doesn't want the ache in the eye, and he also doesn't want to have double. So what he's going to do is tilt his head. So that's on that side. If you look at the left, which should be matching it, so you're looking across, up, 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 as much as you can. And you can see how, again, with the right eye, it's up and out, but the left eye is just not able to go as extremely up as possible.
When I got poked in the eye, obviously, and then people were like, his eye wasn't even red. Does your eye always go red when there's something wrong, or is that?
You can absolutely lose your vision without having a painful red eye. So you don't need a red eye to have blurred vision at all. So no.
Yeah. So how long till I can train properly, spar?
It's a long road ahead, but the prognosis is guarded at the moment. I would recommend that you wouldn't fight until your double vision's resolved.
Tom Aspinall went to the doctors, and the doctors has confirmed that he's got some issues with his eyeballs. He's got some soft tissue damage to the eyeballs, and that will happen when a 6'6" Frenchman sticks both of his fingers knuckle deep into your eyeballs, okay? So that's not surprising. But what is surprising is that he has something called Brown syndrome, which basically is where the eyes aren't moving in tandem with one another. So therefore, the eyes, which are basically cameras, right, for your brain, in case you don't know, they're seeing different images. And when you see different images, you see double, or maybe sometimes the brain cuts out one of the images so that it doesn't get confusing and you don't get headaches and stuff like that. And then, of course, when you're only seeing through one eye, you have problems with depth perception.
Tom Aspinall has always stood out as one of the few heavyweights who can mix humility, professionalism, and raw power in a way that earns respect before he even steps into the octagon. For years, he's carried himself with a calm, disciplined attitude, the kind of presence the UFC wishes every champion had. He's jumped into fights on short notice, rescued entire cards, walked straight into chaos without hesitation, and never tried to bully the promotion or talk trash just to get attention. Yet now, he's suddenly become the target of one of the nastiest and most disrespectful smear attempts the heavyweight division has seen in a long time. And what sparked all of it? A very real, medically serious, potentially career-altering eye injury. This wasn't some minor poke in his fight with Cyril Gane, nothing that just caused temporary blur or quick discomfort. The injury led to a diagnosis that included problems with eye movement, depth perception, migraines, and the possibility of long-term damage. The kind of thing that can affect not just a fighter's career, but their everyday life. Tom explained everything clearly and honestly in his update video. But instead of receiving empathy or understanding, his reveal somehow opened the door for Jon Jones, who had basically been silent for more than a year while Tom respectfully called him out, to suddenly reappear and start clowning him. Jon's comments dismissed the seriousness of the injury, mocked Tom, and downplayed something any experienced fighter knows is extremely dangerous. That's what pushed the MMA community into chaos. When Tom wanted the unification fight, Jon Jones ghosted the entire situation. He stepped away, avoided every respectful challenge, and left Tom holding an interim belt that felt more like a trap than an accomplishment. There were no talks, no explanations, not even basic acknowledgement.
Situation looked like Curtis Blaze came to beat Tom Aspinall up that night. Tom throws a kick and magically gets hurt. I would expect a fighter to at least attempt to stand back up or at least limp. And with Tom, he was just completely out of the fight. And his last situation was Cyril Gane. He gets poked in the eye. Normally you see fighters that are doing this number, trying to get the doctor to look at it. And actually, initially the doctor's just like, he seems fine. Tom's like, no, I can't see. I can't see. The guy wasn't trying to see. Yeah. The guy didn't want to see. The eye that he was covering appeared to be the eye that actually didn't get penetrated. One eye finger goes all the way underneath the eyelid. The other eye, it was on top of the eyelid. And he ends up grabbing the eye where the finger was on top of the eyelid. So I don't even think Tom really knew which eye was supposed to be more compromised. He just knew that he had been fouled and it was his way out. So that alone shows me a little bit what's behind the facade of this whole Tom Aspinall character.
Can we get full-time Bully Aspinall after this smear campaign? How are you going to be on the comeback?
Mate, when I come back, there is no more Mr. Nice Guy. Nice Tom. When it comes to MMA, he's gone. And I'm going full bad guy, I think.
I feel it's Tom's a great athlete, but I do feel like he's a one-trick pony.
When you look at people talking shit online of like, oh, you know, he's ducking this guy or he's dodging this guy, they haven't seen the work that you've done in the past and how dominant you've been. We know you're not ducking this guy. I mean, talk to me about what you saw in his fight with Gane. I mean, because Gane looked like he was controlling the fight.
With Cyril Gane?
Yeah.
I believe that his wrestling and jiu-jitsu is incredibly overrated. He has a beautiful 1-2. I got to learn a lot about his patterns in his last fight. Beautiful 1-2, that's really about it. He couldn't touch Cyril Gane at all. That's the way I felt. I felt like Gane was just getting warmed up. Gane's hands was down. He was shaking his shoulders, bouncing around.
He was touching him.
That jab.
He busted him open.
He was so comfortable.
I think Tom was looking for a way out, and he took it. He needs to change his game plan.
When Tom gets hurt, he's like immediately incapacitated. It's like, you poke my eye.
He never tried to look. It was rag on the eye immediately. He doesn't have the dog in him.
Tom kept working, kept winning, and continued representing the division with class. While Jon stayed quiet in a way that made it obvious the unification fight only existed if everything perfectly benefited him. But the moment Tom gets hurt, when he's vulnerable and people start questioning his future, that silence disappears. Suddenly, Jon Jones has more to say than he has in the past year and a half. And these weren't fun jabs or normal competitive trash talk. They were sharp, mocking comments designed to portray Tom Aspinall as someone who quit, someone who didn't fight through adversity, someone who lacked championship heart. All while fully understanding that eye injuries are among the most serious and dangerous issues a fighter can face. Eye injuries are not something a fighter can simply push through. They're the kind of damage that has left athletes with permanent vision problems, and in the worst cases, blind. Any fighter who pretends they can just tough it out is gambling with the rest of their life. And this is exactly where Dana White's frustration becomes obvious. He's been aware of this entire situation from the inside. He saw the UFC attempt to put together Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. He saw Jon quietly remove himself from the conversation. He saw fans suddenly shift blame onto Tom after the eye pokes. He watched analysts twist the story into something completely different from reality. And through all of it, he saw Jon do absolutely nothing to correct any of the misinformation circulating online. Then, after Tom spent weeks going through medical evaluations, vision tests, and trying to figure out whether his career was even salvageable, Jon Jones chose that moment, of all moments, to make fun of him publicly. Dana White despises that. Not because he's choosing sides, but because it disrespects fighter safety, harms the UFC's image, and turns a serious medical situation into a social media circus aimed at.
And he's waiting around for Jon Jones for a whole year, over a year. Career on hold. Despite the fact that he told everyone, look, this guy ain't going to fight me. He's going to retire before he'll fight me. So you might as well just give me the title now. But unfortunately, the UFC, they wanted to believe that their GOAT was the man that they bigged him up to be. And they were wrong. And after working his whole life to become UFC heavyweight champion, this was the way it was announced.
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
All right, Dana, calm down. Don't get too excited. And that was in the middle of the night in some random-ass UFC press conference. No ceremony, no celebration, no congratulations, Tom. We've got the best young fighter in the world. It was as if no one gave a fuck from the UFC. It was so bad. And I get Dana was pissed because he'd been made to look a fool by Jon Jones. But that was never Tom Aspinall's fault. Tom just wanted to fight the best guy he possibly could. And you'd think MMA fans would love that. There's a fighter who's trying to fight the best, wants to win the title, wants to defend the title and be an active heavyweight champion, something we've not had in God knows how long in the UFC. But no, because Jon Jones weirdly has a lot of fans who want to see him protected and not get his chin smashed to bits, they supported the guy who ran away from the fight and trashed Tom consistently. What a weird fan base.
Dana White is now caught in the center of a conflict that should never have existed. The UFC had been pushing hard for Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones to headline the historic White House event, the biggest promotional moment the company has ever had. But Jon's refusal to take the fight, followed by his sudden return only to mock a serious injury, forced Dana to close that chapter altogether. The White House card will move forward without Jon Jones because Dana refuses to reward a pattern of behavior that hurts the UFC instead of pushing it forward. Meanwhile, Tom Aspinall is stuck dealing with a situation where his toughness, his honesty, and his reputation are being attacked by people who have absolutely no understanding of what he's facing medically. And with every new medical update that shows how severe the injury truly is, the criticism toward Jon grows even stronger. Fighters, analysts, reporters, and former champions are openly calling out the disrespect, especially considering Tom has never insulted Jon Jones. In fact, Tom has spent most of his career praising him as one of the greatest fighters of all time. All of this has turned into a volatile situation inside the UFC. The promotion can no longer overlook the problem of eye pokes. They can't continue letting fighters be shamed for real, documented injuries. And they certainly can't allow a legend like Jon Jones to twist the truth at the expense of a champion who has done everything right from day one.
Does he fight in 2026? True or false?
Well,
he's talking so much smack about Tom.
He doesn't have the money to not. He doesn't have the money to walk away. He doesn't have a choice. I mean, that's
why did he walk away to begin with? He was offered $30 million.
Yeah.
He asked for 30, and he got that.
Yeah. No,
and now he's apologizing.
Yeah. No, I don't know. He
miscalculated that one.
Yeah. He did that thing with Nate, and they got $300,000, and it took 30 days, and so all of a sudden he's like, "Well, if I can make $300,000 in 30 days, and I can do this every 30 days."
Sure.
No, it's. I mean, sometimes explaining very basic things it can be tough, but. Will he fight again? Yes, I believe so. And I think there's some real legs. Look, if you're the UFC, the last thing you want to do is empower a dude that you can't count on. And by the way, it ties back into my theory to whoever's keeping him out of the rankings. Like there's something afoot there.
What are you left feeling after the fight?
Well, look, if you were sidelined from doing your job for like 15 months, not allowed to do anything, you train your ass off for 6 months for a fight. Then to get double eye pokes, be left with no vision for nearly 6 weeks because of an illegal move. How do you think I feel? I'm not feeling fantastic, am I?
This growing tension is exactly why Dana White's patience is wearing thin. Jon Jones taking shots at a fighter who might be dealing with long-term damage to his vision isn't just a bad look. It's disrespectful to the sport itself. What makes it worse is that Tom Aspinall never once tried to use his injury for sympathy, leverage, or special treatment. He simply presented the facts. He showed the medical results, described the symptoms, and let fans see the reality of what he was facing. Instead of being respected for his honesty, that transparency turned into ammunition for people determined to label him as weak, soft, or undeserving of the heavyweight crown. The irony is almost unbelievable because Tom Aspinall has built his entire resume on stepping up in moments when others step aside. If the UFC measured reliability the same way they measure knockouts, Tom's record would be flawless. That's why his medical update hit the MMA world like an earthquake. Not because the injury itself was shocking, but because it exposed how completely wrong the criticism after the Cyril Gane fight had been. Tom didn't quit. He didn't fold. He didn't look for an escape. What he suffered was an eye injury severe enough to limit eye movement, strain the muscles around the eye, and threaten the long-term stability of his vision. No fighter, not even the toughest heavyweight alive, could continue through that without risking blindness or serious neurological complications. And yet Jon Jones, a fighter who understands more than anyone how fragile the human body is in combat, chose to weaponize this moment for insults. That's where Dana White hit his breaking point. Dana has dealt with drama, contract disputes, personal attacks, and controversies for decades, but he refuses to tolerate fighters mocking legitimate injuries. He's seen careers ruined by eye pokes. He's witnessed legends fade from one unfortunate moment, and he knows just how dangerous heave. Eye striking becomes when a fighter can't see properly to S.O. When Jon publicly dismissed Tom's explanation, Dana didn't view it as regular trash talk. He saw it as reckless, disrespectful, and something that could undermine fighters' safety as a whole. The UFC is already facing heavy criticism for still not fixing the eye poke problem. Fights have been overturned, results changed, and careers damaged because of it. Everyone sees it. Fans, fighters, journalists, and Dana himself. And Tom Aspinall's situation is the newest example of the consequences of ignoring the issue. That's why Dana's frustration wasn't just pointed outward. It was also directed at the situation itself. Tom Aspinall represents the exact type of fighter the UFC wants front and center. An elite athlete who behaves like a champion even before he becomes one. He trains with discipline, speaks respectfully, handles business professionally, and has repeatedly saved the UFC's schedule by stepping in on short notice without hesitation. For a fighter like that to be dragged through the dirt while dealing with a career-threatening injury is exactly the kind of scenario that sets Dana White off.
Through this, Tom's the one that's getting absolutely slaughtered online, and Tom's the one 6 weeks later still having to go to the doctor and still can't train and do any kind of combat. So he's the man that's living with this, okay? So you understand, you kind of will get emotional, you will be pissed off, and you will think that Cyril Gane was doing that on purpose. I still don't, okay? I don't think Cyril Gane did that on purpose. What you want to do is crack someone in the face, and when the hands are out, when you go to grab, if someone comes in to take you down or whatever, sometimes that happens. That's why this whole rule of the fingers being up, not allowed there, but they're allowed there, is stupid.
This is number one bullshit.
Because what happens when someone comes forward and you got to grab them, because you can grab, you're allowed to in the rules, fingers go haywire, go into eyes. Make a fist, make a loose fist. It's not hard. That's all that's going to happen. But anyway, so Tom's saying that, and he's getting absolutely slaughtered online. A lot of people are talking shit. Okay, all you've got to do is Google his name, look on Instagram, look on Twitter, and some of the comments are just ridiculous.
Give us your reaction to the eye poke and how it all went out.
I mean, I feel the way everybody feels. Great showing, shitty ending, you know?
It would seem obvious that a rematch is right on the cards. Would you like to just rebook these guys as soon as Tom is able to get back in there?
Yeah, total pain in the ass, but yes.
You think about Dana White saying Tom didn't continue.
Tom didn't want to continue in the fight, so.
And then also, who gives it to eye pokes?
Who gives it?
Well, listen, I didn't continue. I'll tell you why I didn't continue. Because I'm not a dummy. Like, I'm not going to go out there and fight one of the best strikers in the world if I can't see. I know, as an MMA fighter, look, things are going to happen in the fight that compromise you. Go back and watch my fight with Arlovski. The end of the first round, he punched me right in the eyeball. For the rest of that fight, I couldn't see him out that eye. That's fine. If you get punched or kicked in the eye, that's fine. If you get double eye poked in both eyes and you've got no vision because of a foul, why should I carry on so some dummy can look and say, oh yeah, Tom just got knocked out? Because I ain't going to fight if I can't see anything because of a foul.
But the real explosion point in this entire situation is the growing belief that Jon Jones chooses his moments not out of competitive spirit, but out of pure convenience. When Tom Aspinall was healthy, active, and publicly pushing for the unification fight, Jon stayed silent. When the UFC tried to build that historic matchup for the White House event, Jon had nothing to say. When the heavyweight division desperately needed clarity, direction, and leadership, Jon was nowhere to be found. Yet the moment Tom is injured, the moment Tom is unsure about his own future, the moment Tom finally reveals the true seriousness of his condition, Jon Jones suddenly has limitless energy to mock him, take shots at him, and frame him as someone unworthy of chasing the heavyweight legacy he claims as his own. That's where fan frustration transformed into outright anger. Because if the MMA world can't always agree on rankings, matchups, or politics, it definitely recognizes cruelty when it sees it. Tom Aspinall has never disrespected Jon Jones. Not once. He has spoken about him with admiration, calling him the greatest fighter of all time on multiple occasions. When a unification fight collapsed, Tom didn't throw accusations. He didn't call Jon scared. He didn't label him unreliable. He simply kept training, kept winning, and kept preparing for what he and the UFC expected would eventually be his moment. So, for Jon Jones to use Tom's medical crisis as a chance to jump back into the spotlight feels personal, calculated, and shockingly out of character for someone who claims to honor the sport's history. And that is why, for the first time in a very long time, Dana White has positioned himself publicly on the opposite side of Jon Jones. Dana isn't backing Tom because Tom represents the next generation. He's backing him because the truth is impossible to ignore. An eye injury of this magnitude isn't a storyline, it's a warning. The heavyweight division is now standing at a crossroads. with a champion who carried the modern era on his shoulders suddenly fighting for his health instead of a belt.
Some reporters think that because I think that he should box because it's more money, that affected him in the fight. I've never heard as much as people saying what I say affects Tom in a fight. I say loads of things to loads of people. People who are around me all the time know that. Boxers are around me all the time. It's just because of the money. And it's the back to, if your son was a fighter, would you sooner fight for a ton of money or not a ton of money? It's a no-brainer, but people still have a narrative of what a fight is. You know, something needs doing about it.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it's horrendous for me to look at that.
Say that. How is he not disqualified off that?
It's outrageous. And then people start booing me like, my fault. Big double fault to me, mate. Just trained for 14 months. Trust me, didn't want someone's finger knuckle deep in my eye. The last thing I wanted.
Bully Aspinall has finally come out. Tom Aspinall is showing he doesn't care about the UFC and the UFC fans who have been giving him shit for a long time.
He's going at the fans, he's going at Dana White, and he's going at Cyril Gane.
Let's go over what he said. Cyril Gane is a cheater. He goes into fights, looking to eye poke, back of the head shots. He even said Jon Jones, before he fought Cyril Gane, called him a cheater as well. Then he says he's pissed off with Dana White, and he's also said he's got Brown syndrome, which is a pretty serious eye condition, which may involve surgery. He's not training right now. He just wants to get his eyes back to 100%.
And you know what? It's all warranted. Dana White, very unnecessary comments after that fight.
You know, he's very much been the nice guy, the polite Englishman, the gentleman. Now, he doesn't care. The gloves are off, and this Tom Aspinall is going to self-ice, and dare I say, he's going to knock out Cyril Gane. He's coming in with a vengeance in the rematch.
Meanwhile, the former champion who once dominated the heavyweight landscape seems to be battling for relevance rather than competition. That contrast, the man fighting for his health versus the man fighting for attention, is exactly what pushed Dana White into taking a firm, public stand against Jon Jones. Dana didn't pull Jon from the potential White House event because of contract details or negotiation problems. He did it because the UFC cannot spotlight a fighter who openly mocks the injuries of the very man who stepped up and kept the division alive during Jon's absence. This decision goes far beyond simple matchmaking. It's a message about respect, professionalism, and what it truly means to represent the UFC at the highest standard. And while Tom Aspinall continues consulting with specialists, attending medical evaluations, and hoping the long-term outlook is positive, the MMA community is slowly realizing something important. The criticism thrown at him was never grounded in truth. It was driven by impatience, assumptions, and a complete misunderstanding of what he was actually facing.
I guess the clarifying question then is, if Dana and Hunter do come to you after this fight, the figures make sense to you, would you then be open to fighting Tom Aspinall, or are you categorically thinking, he does nothing for me, I will not fight that guy?
He does nothing for me. He does nothing for me. If you're a person that wants to see me really challenged, then I get it. 7 years younger, like 35 pounds bigger than me, right? I get it. It's like, wow, this Jon's so good. We finally found someone way younger and way bigger than him. Let's see how he does against that. I get that narrative. But for me, if you were my manager, if you were on my team, why not fight against Pereira, a guy who's the same age as you, and we walk around the same exact size? Business-wise, it makes more sense. Fight the, I'm gonna call him this, fight the nobody that may be more dangerous, or fight the guy with all the accolades who's incredibly dangerous, but it actually will affect your legacy.
And of course, it's been pretty interesting, all the stuff that Jon Jones has been saying to the media this week, and I'm sure there's more to come, but check out these.
You're beating guys who aren't even champions, and you consider yourself a champion. He's not a champion.
So Jon said I need to fight more champions, but this is the problem I've got. Jon is the champion, and he won't fight me. And he says that he won't fight me because it's too much of a gamble.
Aspinall to me is no difference than an Olin St. Prude or Dominic Reyes or Anthony Smith. They're like just another up and comer that's exciting right now. And I'm not into gambling my legacy for what's exciting.
And Jon, if you're not into gambling your legacy, that to me sounds like you're scared of losing against me.
The problem from the start wasn't Tom Aspinall's actions. It was the noise around him. Misinterpretation, rushed opinions, and the loudest voices online drowning out reality. But now that the real medical facts are out in the open, the entire smear campaign has crumbled. Fighters who have suffered injuries just as serious, or worse, are now stepping up publicly to defend him, because they understand exactly what he's going through to this point. The storyline has evolved far beyond rankings or who the top heavyweight is. Tom's injury, Jon's mockery, and Dana's public backlash have reshaped the conversation completely. It's no longer about skill or belts. It's about character. It's about who carries themselves with respect. It's about who understands the weight of their influence. And most importantly, it's about who is willing to stand behind a fighter who has given the UFC everything he possibly could.